This is Dolynny TV, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon and welcome back to another edition of Edmonton Oilers discussion here on the channel today. Ooh, yeah, you know what? She's been another fine day. This Monday, I drove around South Calgary, and then all of a sudden, it was like 11:30, and I'm like, where did the day go? But here we are, fine and dandy. It's 5:30 and time to record an Edmonton Oilers discussion for the day. And today, driving home, I'm thinking, you know what? There's a distinct possibility something happens with the defense that didn't happen last year. And this is kind of a theory I've floated with myself for a couple days now, and having it played out in NHL 21 a little bit too. I think it's worth just having a conversation on it. If we can talk about Athanasiu again, we can probably talk about this. So ladies and gentlemen, the Edmonton Oilers defense is going to be a little bit of a mystery this upcoming year, right? That's kind of the given with Oscar Klefbom being out of the lineup. And you can ask yourself, it's going to be a mystery. Are they going to be able to defend well enough? Are they going to be able to score enough points to outscore their mistakes? What's kind of going to be the evolving roles if we have Barrie, Larson, and Bear on the right-hand side, right? Does Barrie drop down to third pair? Do you pair Barrie with Nurse? What do you do? Who does Adam Larson play with? Does he play with Caleb Jones? How does that all work out? Well, that is the question I'm going to try and answer a little bit here today by looking at it through the lens of maybe Dave Tippett won't be able to have his way with lefty-righty matchups on each line, right? Last year you saw Klefbom, Larson, Nurse, Bear, and then Russell and Benning, or Jones and Benning. Those were your pairs. That was how it worked. Legason, throw him in there too. That's how it worked for the Edmonton Oilers in 2019-2020, is you had left guy on the left-hand side, right guy on the right-hand side, so as the stick could always be towards the middle if need be. Well, okay, great dandy and gold, but my friends, here we go. Klefbom's out of lineup. You've got Jones, who's ready for full-time in the NHL. You've got to fill a hole on the left-hand side. You're missing Matt Benning. Well, all of a sudden, yeah, suddenly there's some questions to arise there. And I guess it really becomes a matter of how you fill said holes. Do you plan on having Caleb Jones in the lineup full-time? Heck yeah, you do. So Caleb Jones in the lineup, Chris Russell in the lineup, and Darnell Nurse in the lineup. Okay, gold. Now you've got Ethan Bear, you've got Adam Larson, and you've got Tyson Barrie on the right-hand side. Well, it then becomes a matter of ice time, and especially if you're looking at getting guys more proper ice time to the roles they're suited to. We know Barrie, Larson, Nurse, and Bear last season all played 20-plus minutes a night, most nights, or majority of the nights, depending on how you want to break down the exact stats of ice time for each individual player. So those guys, those have to be your top 4 defenders. But hold on, those are 3 right-hand shot D and a left-hand shot D. So here in the question again becomes ice time question, because do you then try to catapult Caleb Jones into a top 4 role like you did with Ethan Bear last season and hope that everything just magically fixes itself, and what you've lost in the lineup in Klefbom and Matt Benning you gain in having Caleb Jones as a top 4 D-man? My kind of critical thinking on that would be, offensively you're probably going to get away with it. Defensively you're probably going to miss a step, right? Is Klefbom, you know what, great, like he's a guy that the team wins with in the lineup, but is the impact 100% defense? Probably not. So scratch off a little bit of his defensive game. Caleb Jones can make up some of that, but can he make up as well in terms of Matt Benning, it's just a given fact the past several years for the Oilers, when that guy's in the lineup, the Oilers win hockey games. That's just the way it seemed to go. Like, you look at all the fancy stats, that's what added up. So, sure. Okay, great. Gold. So we've solved the problem. Yeah, you just throw Caleb Jones in the top 4 and hope and pray. But why would you do that, right? If you're Dave Tippett, why would you then catapult a guy who's played a total of how many ever games in the NHL in Ethan Bear? He has 11, 71 last year, 82 games, a full season in the NHL, back into a top 4 role. Well, that makes sense. Okay, fine. Yeah, okay. That's not too far-fetched given what he did last year. But then adding Caleb Jones into the mix, yeah, that's going to be tough. So that is in where you have to look at kind of this situation? Do you then, instead of doing that and hoping Caleb Jones solves the top 4 problem, left-right combos, do you then go Caleb Jones and Chris Russell on the third pair, 2 guys who are both capable of playing on their opposite hands, opposite sides of the ice? Caleb Jones has done it at times last year and the year previous. Chris Russell has done it majority of his time in Edmonton when asked or needed to. So, okay, good, gold, great. Yeah, you've solved that. Well, hold on. Now you're back to that ice time problem, because now you're trying to allocate your ice time in the top 6 or in your top 4, and you've got 3 right-hand shot D. That's where I get to the question about Dave Tippett and if he's going to get his matchups the way he likes them, because already on your third pair, you have Chris Russell and Caleb Jones sitting in there, both left-hand shot defensemen, and then all of a sudden, stretch back a second, you've got 3 right-hand shots in the top 4. Okay, is that something you're comfortable with? Well, that is the question, and that's exactly what this video is meant to do, is ask that question. Would you, as an Oilers fan, and especially if you put yourself in Dave Tippett's shoes, be comfortable sitting in the top 4 with Tyson Barrie, Adam Larsson, Darnell Nurse, and Ethan Bear? You know what? Yeah. Our 1A, 1B pair to Clefbaum and Larsson is Bear and Nurse from last year. That's proven by ice time. So, okay, yeah, that's not so much an issue. I know I have a lot of misgivings there myself, and I know a lot of you guys do as well, but that's not so much the issue. The issue is that pair works, and we can stomach that. You know what? As long as the ice time's allocated right, they aren't going to hurt us as much as they can potentially help us. If Darnell Nurse figures out not to carry the puck behind his own net, leave Bear empty-handed defensively, and vice versa, okay, easy. As long as Dave Tippett reins those guys in, that's solved. But that leaves you with Barrie and Larsson as your 1A, 1B pair, or 2A, 2B pair, whatever you want to say, to those guys. And Barrie and Larsson are both right-hand shots. So not only now do you have left-hand shots in your bottom 6 pair, your Chris Russell and your Caleb Jones, but your 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, however you want to look it up, pair is now both right-hand shots. And you see this, right? That is where my question about the ice time allocation really comes in, because ideally, a guy with Tyson Barrie's capability, you would want to give him 19, 20 minutes a night to allow him to outplay those mistakes in the defensive zone. And I mean, playing with Connor McDavid, he more than likely can. But again, then, right, you've got right-hand shot. But I guess my question is, if that is the scenario, does what Adam Larsson adds defensively offset what Tyson Barrie costs defensively and adds offensively? And suddenly, you know what, maybe because, yeah, you've got some right hands and left hands in your D pair, you're not doing so bad. And that's the question, is realistically, depending on how you allocate ice time, is it okay to break Dave Tippett's rule? And the only man who can answer that question is Dave Tippett himself. Because, right, we saw last year it was hard line on those D pairs. Had to be left, had to be right, and that was a pair. That's the way it worked. Probably, we played 71 games. It probably worked that way at least 60 to 65 games in the season to start every game. That was how the lineup sheet read. Okay, right? But with Clefbaum out, and more than likely not yet wanting to force Caleb Jones into the top 4, I'd do it. Just honestly, play 10 games. If after 10 games you're 3-7, you're 3-7 after 10 games, and St. Louis turned it around after the whatever it was, January 1st, February 1st. So it's not impossible, and the Oilers have the talent to do it, to turn it around after a 10-game stretch if it goes poorly. But here's the thing, is, right, do you allocate that ice time, maybe shatter Caleb Jones and not allow your top 4 to succeed? Or, again, we're focusing on Caleb Jones here. I guess that's the other side here. I'm focusing on Caleb Jones, but in your top 4, if you go with Caleb Jones in your top 4, who's his right-hand shot? Is it Larsson, who's the veteran guy, or is it Tyson Barrie, who's the veteran offensive guy? Right? You've got 2 options, but somebody, if you go with Caleb Jones on your second or first pair, honestly, it depends on where Dave Tippett rates this guy. Who is your third pair right shot defenseman? that's the end of the day the toughest question to answer right now, because you've got Bear, Larson, and Tyson Barrie, who all are minute-munching defensemen. Whether they're defensively productive or not, they're minute-munching defensemen on any team they played with. Ethan Bear, whole career with the Oilers. Adam Larson, most of his career with the Oilers. And Tyson Barrie, both with Colorado and Toronto. So, right, it's a tough question to answer, because no matter how you look at it, you're either breaking Dave Tippett's rule, forcing a guy into the top four that might not be ready for it in Caleb Jones, or forcing a guy to play on the third pair on the right-hand side that realistically can be a little bit more of value playing more minutes. And I guess, is it a question of Dave Tippett just coaching it the right way and next man up? If Adam Larson's having a rough game, Tyson Barrie gets more ice time. If Tyson Barrie's having a rough game, Ethan Bear gets more ice time. And if Ethan Bear's having a rough game, Adam Larson gets more ice time. I see a lot of questions coming for the Oilers defense come training camp, because don't forget, hey, you know what we haven't talked about? Evan Bouchard, Philip Broberg, William Lagesson, who more than likely is your 7th D-man, and that's why I didn't talk about him. But, right, those are guys that really are going to push the envelope coming into camp and make you have some hard questions for yourself if you're Dave Tippett and the coaching staff. So, weigh them. It's a lot to ask, but you have to figure out how to do it, and I don't think there is one perfect solution for the Edmonton Oilers and their defense, and that is why I expect a major shakeup when it comes to how the defense is run last year over this year, if indeed Oscar Klefbom is out for the year, or, I'll put the caveat, majority of the year. Guys, I'm Tyson, this is Dolynny TV. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. That's all I got for you. A lot to consider, a lot of words said in 12 minutes, but you enjoy your evening. If there's any breaking news, we'll get back to it, or if I get bored, I'll put something else up. You know me. I'm getting pretty bored nowadays after moving and getting this whole setup rigged up. But guys, I'm Tyson, Dolynny TV. Out of here.